Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Neighbor, can you turn on that and then the two air conditioners? So you gotta shut this thing off. I have to shut this fan, it makes so much noise. Unless you could shut it the other way, it would be better, then it'll give me more light. I need artificial light. Okay, which is what this verse is about. Okay, we're reading from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person, text 12. So everyone, actually you could read it right there. If everyone can repeat, Yadaditya Gatam Tejo
Yadaditya Gatam Tejo
Jagat Bhashayate Kilam
Jagat Bhashate Akhilam
Yach Chandramasi Yach Chagno
Yachandramashi Yachagno
Tatejo Vidi Mamakam No
Tate Yachandramashi Yachagno
Yaraditya Gatam Tejo
Yadaditya Gatam Tejo
Jagat Bhashayate Kilam
Jagat Bhashayate Akhilam
Yach Chandramasi Yach Chagno
Yachandramashi Yachagno
Tejo Vidi Mamakam
Tatejo Vidimamakam
Yaraditya Gatam Tejo
Yadaditya Gatam Tejo
Jagat Bhashayate Kilam
Jagat Bhashayate Akhilam
Yach Chandramasi Yach Chagno
Yachandramashi Yachagno
Tatejo Mamakam
Tatejo Vidimamakam
Chant
Yad Aditya Gatam Tejo
Yadaditya Gatam Tejo
Jagat Bhashyate Kilam
Jagat
Jagat Bhashate Akhilam
Yat Chandramasi Yat Chagno
Yachandramashi Yachagno
Tatejo Vidimamakam
Tatejo Vidimamakam
Yadaditya Gatam Teja
Yadaditya Gatam Tejo
Jagat Bhashate Akhilam
Jagat Bhashate Akhilam
Yachandramashi Yachagno
Yachandramashi Yachagno
Tateja Vidimamakam
Tatejo Vidimamakam Yadaditya Gatam Tejo
Yadaditya Gatam Tejo
Jagat Bhashate Akhilam
Jagat Bhashate Akhilam
Yachandramashi Yachagno
Yachandramashi Yachagno
Tatejo Vidimamakam
Tatejo Vidimamakam
Yat that which Aditya Gatam
Aditya Gatam
in the sunshine
in the sunshine
Tejaha
Teja,
Splendor,
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 Jagat,
Gat,
the whole world.
the
the
whole
whole
world.
world.
I'm gonna take care of it.
Vasayate,
Bhasayate,
Vasayate,
illuminates.
illuminates.
illuminate.
Akilam,
Akhilam,
Akhilam,
Over here by the meters.
entirely.
This only
entirely.
entirely.
Yat,
Yet,
Yat,
that which.
that
that
which.
which.
that which.
Chandramasi,
Chandramasi,
in the moon.
In the
in the
moon.
moon.
Yat,
Yat,
Yet,
that which.
that
that which.
which.
Cha,
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 also.
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 Agno,
Agno,
in fire.
in fire.
fire.
Tat,
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 that.
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 Teja,
Teja,
splendor.
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 Vidhi,
Vidhi,
D.
understand.
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 Mamakam,
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 for me.
Mamakam.
from me.
From me.
Translation. The splendor. If everyone can please mute themselves, so I don't, in case there's some discussions in your home or something. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. Purport. The unintelligent cannot understand how things are taking place, but one can begin to be established in knowledge by understanding what the Lord explains here. Everyone sees the sun, moon, fire, and electricity. One should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun, the splendor of the moon, and the splendor of electricity or fire are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness, in such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in this material world. The living entities are essentially the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and He is giving herewith the hint how they can come back to Godhead, back to home. So there's two paragraphs. It's the first paragraph. I'll just go over that paragraph and the verse itself. Translation: the splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. The splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire also come from me. So Prabhupada explains that this is the beginning of Krishna consciousness. It's just acknowledging that these things are coming from God. Even if you don't even know who God is, it's still the beginning of Krishna consciousness, the beginning of God consciousness. Seeing that these things, that this whole universe, sometimes you look up into the sky at night and see all the stars, and you think of, you should think, and if you do think, it's the beginning of Krishna consciousness, this is all created by God. This is all amazing, and it's so vast. It's so vast, and yet it's actually just like a mustard seed in a bag of mustard seeds, a big bag, 50-pound bag of mustard seeds. And that's just this one universe. So in one sense, it's pretty insignificant, but in another sense, it's so gigantic. So to see the greatness of the universe and the greatness of the sun, without the sun, you can't see anything. Not that you just see the sun is so wonderful, but it's not just the sun. Without it, there's nothing that you can see. So, I mean, you can say we have electricity, but even if there wouldn't be any electricity if it wasn't for the sun. There wouldn't be anything. It wouldn't be life. No one could live without the sun. So we have to acknowledge that there is some great creator who created all this. And okay, now let's just say there is some great creator who created all this. What is the whole purpose of why he did it? Okay, he did it, and now we live here, and we thank him for doing this so that now we have a place to live. But what's the purpose of it? With this whole, even just looking at just this one little universe that we're in. So if we have acknowledging this is the beginning, then there's the verse Atato Brahma Jignasa. Now, in the human form of life, is a time to inquire about the absolute truth. So then we inquire about him. Okay, now we're acknowledging him by seeing the greatness of this universe, and now we inquire about him. Who is he? What does he look like? Where does he live? What does he do? And ultimately also, what does he want me to do? If he created all this, there's some purpose. He doesn't do anything for no reason at all. Everybody does something for a reason. Sometimes the reason is good, sometimes the reason is bad, whatever we may be doing. Krishna or God has his reasons also, which are all good, because he's all good. Even when bad things happen, we have this hurricane came up here today, and there was tornadoes. We got the coronavirus. Why are these things happening? They're also, it's good because we need some chastisement. There's a saying in the Bible, spare the rod and spoil the child. So you don't want to spoil the child. We become spoiled now. If you look at history, in all the other ages, people really suffered so much greater than we suffered. Just existing. It probably gives the example of so many times a hard struggle for existence. It's a hard struggle, but we kind of got it made. Nowadays, it's not that hard. I mean, you got to work, but it's not that hard, and you got such nice comfort. Years ago, no, and everyone had to go outside to go to the bathroom. You had a little outhouse, and there may or may not even been any. Further years ago, there's no electricity. Maybe you have a candle. The wind blows that out. I mean, it's so hard, but you accept it. You just don't know anything else. You accept it. I was thinking of even the kings in the medieval days, like say 500, 800 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Kings, they had it harder than we have it today. They have no electricity. They have no, everything is, I mean, they of course they have a lot of servants and they take care of them. They may have some nice cloth, but the day-to-day living is so much harder then, even for a king, than for, just a poor person nowadays. So we take things for granted, and Krishna has to sometimes put us back, reminding us that this isn't the purpose of life, is to not just to try to eat, sleep, mate, and enjoy, or eat, drink, and be merry and enjoy. It's not just for us to enjoy. So different things have to happen sometimes in order to put us back in line, or at least make the attempt to put us back in the straight and narrow, to understand the importance of God and God consciousness. Apparently, more people were going, were praying to God, at least in the beginning of this pandemic. So there's reasons for everything. So we'd have to think about what is the reason for this whole material universe that we're in, let alone what other universes. Even if you thought this is the only universe, that's pretty amazing. But when you understand more from the Vedic literatures, this is one little insignificant universe. And it's actually like the smallest universe. Other universes are much bigger. And that's why the Brahmas have more heads. Our Brahma only has 4 heads. Now I'm just going to go over more of the purport. The unintelligent cannot understand how things are taking place. So no, they can't understand. Even the scientists trying to understand, they can't understand. You have to understand the only way it's taking place is by the unseen hand of God. You can come and try to understand so many things and come up with so many wrong conclusions. Just like they say that there are many suns. All the stars are suns. But in the Vedic literatures, no. The stars are moons. They're not suns. There's only one sun in each universe. So they can speculate. We accept the Vedas. Just like when they went to the moon, or when they said they went to the moon. Prabhupada said that it says that, that they can't go to the moon because the moon is so very far. The moon is further away than the sun. So, I mean, to us, it doesn't seem that way. And the scientists certainly don't think it's that way. So Prabhupada said, so what should we do? Should we accept the Vedic literatures? And he had a newspaper that they went to the moon. Or should we accept the scientists? And he just threw the newspaper into the trash, So we don't accept the scientists. They can say anything they want. And there are so many cheaters. And there was even a movie about the moon. I don't know if it was the moon hoax or something, going to another planet. It was just a big hoax. It may have been about the moon. So there are people who definitely, besides the devotees, who say they didn't go to the moon, and they have their different evidence. Something like the flag flapping, but there's no wind. Why is the flag flapping? And so I don't know. There's a lot of things. I'm not really that much into it. I don't really care. They could say whatever they want to say. I mean, that's like I can say what I want to say. How many people are going to believe it? I went to the moon. Nobody's going to believe it, and I didn't go to the moon, so I don't know if they went to the moon. Even the whole moon thing. It's a base. It simply comes down to who do you believe? That's all. None of us have any proof that they went or they didn't go, but we accept authority. So which authority do we accept? So by accepting the principle that all of these luminaries, the sun, the moon, the stars in the sky, the planets, they're all coming from God. So just to accept that authority is the beginning of Krishna consciousness. Everyone sees the sun, moon, fire, and electricity. One should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun. The splendor of the sun, if you think about it, I go for walks lots of times early in the morning, and it's dark out. And I go to the park, and halfway through the walk, now this isn't even the sun that I'm seeing. It's just the sunlight, because before sunrise, the sky is already lit. And just that, without actually even seeing the sun, just the rays of the sun that are somehow coming even before the sun is seen are so wonderful. You see everything around. Before that, you don't know what there is. We take a walk, and there's a skunk. A few times we saw this big skunk. He seemed very friendly. I wasn't going to go up to him, but he was very calm and peaceful. Once he walked along with us a little while, but from a distance, but he walked the same way. We looked at him, he looked at us. And that was when it was still just getting light a little bit. First time we went around, it was dark, and we saw him by a tree. And we got pretty close only because the tree was right next to the path. And then after that, the second time around, we were able to see him so much better because of the sunlight. So it's just splendid to see the light. And without the light, darkness, is like Prabhupada said, where there is light, there is no darkness. Light is what we're looking for. That the back to Godhead, back to the light. So it is splendor. Okay, one should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun, the splendor of the moon, and the splendor of electricity or fire are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We have to appreciate these things are very wonderful, especially on a full moon night when there's no clouds in the sky. It brings quite a bit of light, and it's really nice. In such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in the material world. This is interesting or very nice in itself. In such a conception of life, just seeing that these things are coming from God, they're coming from Krishna, is the beginning of Krishna consciousness. Then it says, lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in this material world. Just doing that, you make a great deal of advancement. How kind Krishna is, how kind God is. Just for us acknowledging these wonderful things, and they're coming from Him, you make a great deal of advancement just thinking like that. So imagine chanting Hare Krishna all day long. Imagine hearing about Krishna's pastimes. Imagine remembering Krishna, thinking of Krishna personally. How much advancement you're making. Just this little bit, Prabhupada says, is a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in this material world. The living entities are essentially the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and He is giving herewith the hint how they can come back to Godhead, back to home. The beginning, just thinking like this, is the way to go back home, back to Godhead. It's not so difficult. When you see the sun, when you see the moon now as devotees, we should think these are the sun and the moon are even the eyes of Krishna, or we can see it as emanating from the spiritual world. The sunlight is coming from the planets, the effulgent planets in Vaikuntha. There's actually a verse. I'll read that. Let's see. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam 4:12-36. In the spiritual world, the Vaikuntha lokas are themselves illuminated. There is therefore no need of sun, moon, or electric light. It is, in fact, the illumination of the Vaikuntha lokas which is reflected in the material sky. Only by this reflection are the suns in the material universe illuminated. So the suns are reflections from the spiritual world, from the Vaikuntha planets. After the illumination of the sun, all the stars and moons are illuminated. In other words, all the luminaries in the material sky borrow illumination from Vaikuntha Loka. So we borrow this illumination from the spiritual world, from the spiritual planets. So if we can think like that, we can make a lot of advancement just by thinking of the sun. And we can go back home, back to Godhead. So now the next paragraph I'll start from, let's see. Okay. From this verse, we can understand that the sun is illuminating the whole solar system. Not that there are many suns, all the stars are suns. Actually, stars are moons, at least according to the Vedas. There are different universes and solar systems, and there are different suns, moons, and planets also. But in each universe, there is only one sun. So we follow Vedas. Who are we going to accept as authority? Has anybody gone to a different star? Nobody's gone there. They don't know what it is. They're just speculating that it's a sun. I don't know how they can come to that speculation. When you're a kid and you look up in the sky at night and you see the stars, why would you think it's a sun? If it was a sun, it would be really bright. I mean, they're bright, but they're little tiny specks. So sunlight is due to the spiritual effulgence in the spiritual sky of the Supreme Lord. With the rise of the sun, the activities of human beings are set up. They set fire to prepare their foodstuffs. They set fire to start the factories, etc. So many things are done with the help of fire. You know, how would we exist without fire? It'd be very, very difficult. We use fire for keeping us warm, you know, in the cold areas of this planet. So therefore, sunrise, fire, and moonlight are so pleasing to the living entities. Not only they're so absolutely necessary. You can't live without these things. I mean, maybe you could live without fire. You can certainly live without electricity. They lived without electricity for thousands of years, but not without fire. I don't know when fire, I mean, we only know from the bogus histories of the scientists that the cavemen, somehow started fire. But actually, in previous yugas, everything was so much more civilized. In Satya Yuga, even though it was very simple, they had fire. They had fire sacrifices. In all different ages, they had fire sacrifices. And those are millions and millions of years ago. So fire seems to be been around according to Vedic culture from the beginning of existence. I'm not so sure about the whole caveman thing. There's some theories that at the end of Kali Yuga, people that says they'll be living in caves. Maybe at the end of Kali Yuga is when there's cavemen, and there was some speculation that like these cavemen or even the dinosaurs are from a previous Kali Yuga. I've heard that many years ago. I didn't read it. I heard Prabhupada said that, but I'm not 100% sure. I didn't hear it myself. But years ago, this is when Prabhupada was on the planet, most of the things that we heard were true. So therefore, sunrise, fire, and moonlight are so pleasing to the living entities. Without their help, no living entity can live. So if one can understand that the light and splendor of the sun, moon, and fire are emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, then one's Krishna consciousness will begin. By the moonshine, all the vegetables are nourished. Another place, Prabhupada says the moonshine makes the vegetables succulent. So they're all nourished by the moon. We don't see that. We don't know that. We just go to sleep and somehow the moon is working on our vegetables, giving them nourishment, making them succulent. So the moonshine is so pleasing that people can easily understand that they are living by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Prabhupada specifically mentions Krishna all the time because that's who it actually is. But even if people don't know, they're still making advancement, just accepting it's coming from God. They may be ignorant of who God is, but accepting that it is coming from God. So the moonshine, so pleasing. There's even in songs. I remember this Italian song. When the moon hits your eyes like a big pizza pie, that's amore. That's love. They compare when the moon hits your eyes like a big pizza pie. So some people who really could like pizza, they see that as coming from Krishna, they also make advancement. So without his mercy, there cannot be sun. Without his mercy, there cannot be moon. And without his mercy, there cannot be fire. And without the help of the sun, moon, and fire, no one can live. These are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. To provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. So Krishna's mentioning this. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of the whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire also come from me. So Krishna is mentioning this because by remembering this, our life can become perfect. We can actually go back to the spiritual world. all these little things of how we can think of Krishna. This is Krishna consciousness. So we have to make some effort to try to see these things. Even in the 10th chapter, there's so many things compared, like of fishes, I am the shark. You see a fish, you can think of what the shark. You can think of Krishna. Or if you see a shark, hopefully not while you're swimming around in the water. But if you do see a shark while you're swimming around in the water, and you think of Krishna, even if that shark should eat you, you still go back to the spiritual world. So you can think of Krishna anyway. Anything that can remind you, anything that's great in this material world should remind us of Krishna. Actually, for the pure devotee, everything reminds him of Krishna. Just like for the conditioned soul, for the materialist, the gross materialist, somebody who's really after money, everything he sees it in relationship to money. He sees how I can get more money. This is a good opportunity. That's bad. I'm not going to do that. Everything he sees it in dollar signs. I had a person who, I don't know how many of you have heard of Amway, but it's a multi-level marketing thing. He came to our temple, probably in the early 70s, and he was trying to sell us Amway products and trying to get us to sell the Amway products ultimately so he can become rich. But he said one thing which I kind of like, not in understanding it his way, but he said, everything you see, everything you see, like you see Amway. He sees Amway, like I see this person, how I can sell them Amway products. What can I use to clean this? Or what? Because they had cleaning products. I don't know what else they had besides cleaning products. But so that's the way to be successful. If you want to be successful materially, if you want to be successful spiritually, you see the things the way they are, because not everything is Amway, but everything is related to Krishna. And you see everything is related to Krishna. That's reality. And when you see it that way, you also go back to Krishna. So you get rewarded with the highest possible reward, not just making a few dollars. There was another person who we knew very well, and he supported this temple too while he was alive. He was selling another product, multi-level marketing, and he was also writing a book and he was entitling it, How to Become Rich by Bugging People. And he would just bug people till they finally buy his product. And he became rich. He became very, very wealthy, making between $20,000 and $60,000 a month by just bugging people. He just bothered everybody until they finally accepted and bought his product. And then a lot of them started doing it themselves, and that's how he became rich. But so you have to kind of see whatever particular thing it is you're selling. You have to see every opportunity. Even when we were selling books, we're still selling books, but years ago, there was devotees were trying to develop this consciousness of thinking about the books day and night. While you're eating, thinking about the book distribution. While you're sleeping, going to sleep, you think about the book distribution. While you're awake, you think about how you're going to distribute the books. And of course, by doing that, they distributed so many books. So, and that's a good consciousness, because Prabhupada put more emphasis on book distribution than he did on anything else. So this is a way to develop our Krishna consciousness, to see everything in relationship with Krishna. And then when we finally get to the point of actually engaging in devotional service, then we can even meditate on our service, try to make it better. So I got a couple of other little things I can read, because I see I got a few minutes before I have to stop for questions. From the Bhagavad Gita 10:21, so this is 15 12, 10:21. Of the Adityas, I am Vishnu. Of lights, I am the radiant sun. Of the Maruts, I am Marichi. And among the stars, I am the moon. So I was reading another place, I don't know if I have it here, but about the stars, that a lot of the great sages live on different stars. So you can live on the stars. It's not like just this big piece of junk. Even you can live in the sun. You can live in the moon. You live everywhere in this universe. But the stars are not planets. Because it says, because Prabhu says the stars and the planets, he says in many places. So I don't even know what then a planet is. I always thought a planet is where you live, but you can live on any of these floating bodies. So there are 12 Adityas, of which Krishna is the principal. Among all the luminaries shining in the sky, the sun is the chief. And in the Brahma Samhita, the sun is accepted as the glowing eye of the Supreme Lord. There are 50 varieties of wind blowing in space, and these winds, I just copied the whole thing. And these winds, the controlling deity, Marichi, represents Krishna. Then among the stars, the moon is the most prominent at night. So the moon is also considered a star. And thus the moon represents Krishna. It appears from this verse that the moon is one of the stars. Therefore, the stars that twinkle in the sky also reflect the light of the sun. The theory that there are many suns within the universe is not accepted by Vedic literature. The sun is one, and as by the reflection of the sun, the moon, luminaries, so also do the stars. So by the reflection of the sun, the moon illuminates, so also do the stars. Since Bhagavad Gita indicates herein that the moon is one of the stars, the twinkling stars are not suns, but are similar to the moon. Okay, I'm going to read just a little bit more and then questions. Hopefully you have some questions. Otherwise, I don't know what we'll do for that 15 minutes. We can end early and people can go to sleep earlier. Early to bed, early to rise. What makes a man, Prabhupada says, healthy and wise. There's the saying goes, healthy, wealthy, and wise, but he doesn't say wealthy because you don't have to be wealthy. It makes you healthy and wise. Doesn't matter if you have a lot of money. Because those who are actually wise, that's not something they really think is so great. Here's this, and this next one is from the 15:6. He is the source of light in all luminous objects. He is beyond the darkness of matter and is unmanifested. He is knowledge. He is the object of knowledge, and he is the goal of knowledge. He is situated in everyone's heart. The Super Soul, the Supreme Personality of God, is the source of light in all luminous objects like the sun, moon, and stars. The Vedic literature, we find that in the spiritual kingdom, there is no need of sun or moon because the effulgence of the Supreme Lord is there. So, and we read earlier how this effulgence of the Supreme Lord, it brings the effulgence to all the Vaikuntha planets, and that effulgence from the Vaikuntha planets is where the sun gets its effulgence from, and all the other luminous objects get their effulgence from the sun, which means ultimately from the spiritual world. So to think like this is Krishna consciousness. The Katha Upanishad 2:15 also confirms that in the spiritual world, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, or stars. Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam. For the whole spiritual sky is illuminated by the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. So there was a verse in the Bhagavad Gita that that in the spiritual world, there's no sun, there's no moon. So someone might interpret that verse as it's dark. But no, there is the light just from Krishna's effulgence. So sunlight is due to the spiritual effulgence in the spiritual sky of the Supreme Lord. Okay, so I'm going to do better than my little sign said before I started. It said that at 7:45 I have to end for questions, and I'm going to end for questions 3 minutes early, just to set a good example. So does anyone have any questions or comments?
Prabhuji, I would like to share something.
Who's that?
Madhava Kanta.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. Yes, what?
So Prabhuji, this is a conversation between a devotee and a Prabhupada, and devotee asked the question, did NASA actually land on the moon? Srila Prabhupada, he asked that question. And Prabhupada said, no, they cannot go there. What is the question of landing? They cannot go there. It is far, far away. What you calculated? It is 1,600 big number miles away up the sun planet. It is lots of miles above the sun. According to your calculation, sun is away from this planet by 93,100,000 miles, and above that 1,600,000 miles. Then you go to moon. How it is possible? So Srila Prabhupada actually rejected. I think that time NASA was, claiming they landed on moon, but Prabhupada rejected that idea. They cannot go there at all. Because as per Bhagavatam, one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada said, first from earth, if you travel, the sun comes first and then moon. And that's a very wrong.
What was the last thing you said?
The sun comes first,
Right,
and then moon.
right.
So this is something I wanted to share, Prabhuji.
Yeah, there's a lot about when that moon landing happened. And Prabhupada asked Satsarup Maharaj to write an article for Back to Godhead that they didn't go to the moon. So he wrote something, basically, if I remember correctly, because it was such a long time ago, it's all on what authority we accept, who we're accepting as authority. We didn't go to the moon. How do we know they went? They could say anything. And even Prabhupada pointed out, they said it was like such and such a desert, the scientists said. And Prabhupada says even there is a hint that where they filmed the whole thing. In some desert. Anyway.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Oh, you're welcome.
Have a nice night. And it was very nice explaining. I every time I have very nice time during this period.
Well,
Thank
we're
you.
very happy you participate. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so
Hare Krishna.
Yes, you have a question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yeah, extension to what Madhav Kanta Prabhu was saying, I think it's in the 8th canto purport. Prabhupada also gives the number of days. So I think he said the moon is around, like the sun is near and the moon is afterwards. And then if they travel, I think he says 18,000 miles per hour in their spacecraft ship, then then he calculate there, and he say then after that also they should be able to reach moon around 7 days. And they claim that they are reaching in 3 days. That how it is possible. Like Prabhupada's refute that with the calculation also there. In the same purport.
You have to find that because...
Yes, it's an 8th canto, Prabhuji. Yeah, it's an 8th canto. I remember reading it sometime before.
Maybe you could look at it and see if you can find it.
Yes, Prabhuji, I'll find it out, but I have read it some maybe couple of weeks ago. I remember that Prabhupada says that in the same.
I just never heard that with the days, but you just try to find it if you can by the end of class, then we can all hear it. If not, let us know. At least let me know in an email.
Another nice.
Tulsi muted me. Yeah.
Oops. Another nice thing to remember when you think of the sun and the moon is how Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda have appeared simultaneously on the horizon of Goda to wonderfully dissipate the darkness of ignorance and wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. So when we see the sun and the moon, we can also remember Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda.
Yeah, that's Krishna consciousness. Okay, any other comments or questions?
Prabhuji, Aniket here. But Prabhuji, Aniket. Aniket.
Oh, okay. Haribol.
Yeah, Haribol. So Prabhuji, if that's true, if as a spiritual world we say that moon is farther from the sun, but I can say science cannot be correct all the time because they do a lot of assumptions. But for the distance of sun and moon, that's not correct, right? That's we always know that moon is the nearest and sun is far from us.
Depends on who you accept as authority. We have one devotee, he's retired now, but he worked for NASA, and he said there was just like he knew only himself and one other person who worked for NASA, and they didn't think that they went to the moon. Everyone else believed it. And he let people know. He didn't care. Let them think what they want. So, what do we know? How do you know the moon is closer? It may look like it's closer. You can't tell anything. I just got a picture from my son. Of a bird that's right in front of his door. Above his door, they built a nest. It's called what kind of swallow?
Welcome.
A welcome swallow. That's the name of the bird. So he took pictures of the bird, and then he took pictures of the bird flying. And when it's flying, you see the street light, and it looks huge. It looks like an eagle, but actually it's not. It's not a trick photography. It's just the distance. It must have been much closer, but than the street light, although it didn't look that way. So you can't judge by our imperfect senses which is closer. And even our imperfect senses, we make instruments which are also imperfect because they're made with our imperfect senses, instruments to judge things. So ultimately it boils down to, did I go to the moon? I never went to the moon. Did someone else go to the moon? How do I know? They can say it. There's a lot of people lie, and there's so many things that happened after that moon landing, different people who died, who had something to do with it. It was so it's a question. Do you accept the U.S. government?
No, so again, Prabhuji, I'm not questioning whether we landed or not landed. I'm saying, we have a lot of satellites which has gone around the moon or Earth. So based on that, at least we can say, I can deny that we have not landed.
What proof do you have we gone around the moon?
The picture and all the photographs we have taken, the moon which we see in the sky, and we goes around that planet and see, okay, this is moon which we are referring today from Earth. That's the moon, and we goes around and we take picture and then we come back. I'm not talking about landing and all.
I know what you're saying. I don't believe that we've gone on the other side of the moon.
Yeah, that's why I agree. That's very controversial topic to.
It's a question of what you believe.
Correct.
It's not. I personally don't trust our government. Just recently, they said you don't need masks. Don't wear masks. Because they needed masks for the health workers, which I understand. And if we all went out and bought masks, the health workers wouldn't have enough masks. Then after they got enough masks, they said, yes, you should wear masks. They just say whatever they want to say to get whatever they want.
That's correct, Prabhupada.
You remember Prabhupada?
And Prabhupada said about he compared these people who are making these rockets to go to these other planets or to travel out in space as killing us, because it's costing billions of dollars. He said, he gave the example of a kid, a little boy, throwing rocks at a frog. And the frog said, why are you throwing these rocks at me? He said, I'm having fun. And the frog says, your fun is killing me. So these scientists, they're having fun. They're playing and they're sending up big rockets and trying to understand things, but that's killing us. It's costing so many billions and maybe trillions of dollars for all their fun. You know, because as kids, you want to do stuff like that. I made a rocket once as a kid. We made gunpowder. We made our own gunpowder, me and my friends, and we got from a paper towel roll, the middle of it, we stuffed it with gunpowder. It was like a stick of dynamite, and then we put a back on it with a little hole. We had a little piece of wood with a little hole, so we put a fuse in, and on the top we made put like a cone on top, and we got a milk crate. And we put it in this place where it was in New York City, but it was a building, like a factory. So it wasn't anybody lived there, but right across the street people lived. And we put it on top of the milk crate so the fuse stuck out the bottom. And we lit it to see this rocket ship we just made. The fun. We made our own gunpowder out of saltpeter, sulfur, and wood charcoal. And then we lit it, and then the flames started shooting out like anything, shooting down like we're waiting for the liftoff, and it just shooting like you do when you see the rocket ships. And then the thing finally tipped over, and the flames are shooting out, and that was our fun. It didn't go anywhere, but we were doing it to have fun. We weren't doing it for any big scientific reasons. And it was not a success, but it was a success that it didn't blow up, which it could have done.
Did you ever hear Prabhupada say that if they went anywhere, they may have gone to Rahu?
Yeah. Yeah, Prabhupada did say that if they went anywhere, they may have gone to Rahu. It's another planet that they don't even know about, people.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, I pasted one link which Prabhupada mentions. I just found something. Okay. So it's from Srimad Bhagavatam. I just pasted in the chat.
In the chat? Was it long? Can you read it?
Prabhupada says it's a letter, but I have pasted some portion of the letter. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, the moon is above the sun planet by 1,000,000, like 10 lakh, like by 16 lakhs miles. The scientist says that the sun is around 93 lakhs miles from the earth, and if the moon is beyond the sun planet, the distance from the earth then would be around 95 lakhs thousand miles. So the moon being so much miles away, how can they go even if they travel at the speed of 18,000 miles per hour? How can they go, these many miles in 4 days? It is not possible in 4 days. They can only go about, Prabhupada is mentioning some number, 28,000 miles, like that. Right. So this is the same in the 8th canto, Prabhuji. I'll try to figure out the purport of that.
But that what you're reading is really good, because they have no idea how far it is away. So they can say we did it in 4 days, going at 18,000 miles, whatever miles they were saying they were going. But Prabhupada knows, according to the Vedas, how far away it is. And therefore, he can say, how can you go that far in that many days? But they don't know the distance.
Yeah, correct. They don't know the completely, so they imagine something and then. Yeah.
Things in the chat, or 3 things. I never look at these chats, so I don't know if I'm supposed to be looking at it.
Yeah, this is a letter he wrote to Dr. Wolf, it seems.
Okay. Anyway, it doesn't really matter if they went to the moon, they didn't go to the moon. Let's just say they went to the moon. They actually went to the moon. It doesn't matter. If Prabhupada's saying they didn't go, we accept they didn't go. People can think we're crazy. We think they're crazy. They're just accepting this bogus authority. cheaters. So many times they've lied, our government. You know, and our government is, we think, is like the best, most honest government. And they're not honest. I mean, the Chinese, they lie, they say anything to anyone. You can prove them. They just shot somebody. They got the gun in their hand that's smoking, and they'll say, no, I didn't do it. I did not do it. You're mistaken. You know, so the governments of today, you can't trust them.
Prabhuji, I don't know whether I have not read, I cannot claim that that's accurate or not, but we also claim that a lot of Rishi Muni in the ancient days, they are very advanced and they are very scientific. And they have also claimed the moon is nearer than sun.
Is
and
what?
That's why the moon is nearer than sun. And that's the reason the number of beats in the Japamala, we have 108, because the diameter of Earth, moon, and the sun, the ratio is 1:108. The distance between moon and the sun from Earth is a ratio of 108.
Okay, first I'd like to know what rishis say that the moon is closer than the sun. That's the first thing. And I'm not talking about just somebody today who's saying it, because I don't accept them. But where do they get there? Because we're not, Prabhupada's not saying this based on his own feelings. He's basing it on scripture.
Okay.
You know, so how can they say anything against the scriptures? So what sages say? Like, did Brigham Muni say this? Did Narada Muni say this? Did it, you know, some great?
Okay, I will try to find out if I can get something Prabhuji.
Yeah, try to find that out, because that's important. Because just because this bogus guru says it doesn't mean it's right. People say so many things. They may be considered by a sage because they live a real simple life. They don't cut their hair. Their hair is matted. That doesn't make them a sage. I mean, and they may be a sage, but that in itself isn't enough. Basically, it has to be following the Vedas. The Veda, see, it says there's a triangle is like the strongest form. And with a triangle, there's things, it can hold up so much, the shape of the triangle. And it says there's three things that we have to see that are all in accord, all saying the same thing, which is proof that it's true. One is the guru. Whatever the guru says has to also be in the Vedas, and it also has to be said by past saints and acharyas. So if a person is saying something that's not in the Vedas and not supported by past saints and acharyas, it's not accepted as a fact. But if the guru is saying something that's in the Vedas and supported by past saints and acharyas, then we accept it as a fact. So that's one way to tell whether a guru is bona fide. So we don't just accept somebody, because anybody can say anything. Just like we have a president who says anything, and how much of it is true. You know, we're all conditioned. We're conditioned to accept so many things. And then when we hear something that's different than our conditioning, it may sound like that's not true, because I believed this for so many years. But it doesn't mean it's not true. It's just we're still conditioned. And I think the main thing to know is I never flew around the moon. You know, and I don't even think I ever dreamt of flying around the moon, let alone actually doing it. So it's really who we accept as authority. It says that the guru, if the guru sees a rope and he says, it's a snake, kill it, that the disciple, he should try to kill it like it's a snake. Even if he sees it's just a rope. And if there's a snake and the guru says, oh, it's just a rope, he accepts it as a rope, even though he sees it's a snake and it might kill us. That's the way we have to accept the authority of the guru. But also what the guru says has to be like, you're not going to, in the Vedas, it's not going to say, this is a snake, this is a rope. There are certain things like that you just see with your senses. But in other words, his senses are much better than mine. And if he sees this way, then I accept it that way rather than my own. So it's a snake, it's a rope. We have to, that was an example. And that's from the Vedas, that example of how we have to accept authority. But if there's anything he says that is in the Vedas, then we have to accept it as authority. Anyway, this whole moon thing, I'm sorry I got into this whole moon thing, because even when Prabhupada was here, there was at least one devotee who left Krishna consciousness because he couldn't accept that the moon was further away than the sun, or that they landed on the moon, or whatever it was. But he couldn't accept it when this happened. And he left Krishna consciousness. Of course, this is a Western devotee, because that's all there was at that time, pretty much. And he gave up Krishna consciousness because of that. For me, it's not a big deal. I don't care. If they went to the moon, they didn't go to the moon. And whether I believe they went to the moon or didn't go to the moon, how does that affect anything? So I accept they didn't go to the moon. They went somewhere. Maybe if they were honest and sincere, which I have doubts about even, then they went to some other planet like Rahu. But otherwise they're just cheating. I was seeing, because Russia sent the first Sputnik up. Anyway, we were competing with Russia. It was a whole thing. And then we said this, and I'm thinking Russia probably was going to do the same thing, but we said it first. And they can't say we didn't do it, because they were going to do it themselves, just lie about it. So it's like I lied about it first, so they're not going to try to say it's not possible, because they were doing it themselves. Anyway, it's not a big thing, and we shouldn't make it a big thing. And if you think they went to the moon, fine, chant Hare Krishna, and eventually Krishna will tell you when you go back to the spiritual world. There's a joke about these two conspiracy theorists, and they both died, and they went to heaven, and there they found God. They met him at the pearly gates, and God said to them that Kennedy was killed by Oswald, and the World Trade Center was destroyed by the Muslim terrorists. And then one conspiracy theorist told the other one, "Just see, I told you, it goes all the way to the top."
It's funny.
So it's like they don't change. That doesn't matter. Even if God says something, they still don't accept it. I think it's just a conspiracy. So whether they went to the moon or they didn't go to the moon, when it happened, everybody believed they went to the moon. Afterwards, there was a lot of people, not just devotees, who are not sure if they went to the moon. The only person that I knew, and this is really nice, that said they didn't go to the moon was my grandmother, my mother's mother. And she said they didn't go to the moon. And we said, "Why do you say that?" And she said, "Because God wouldn't let them." And that was it. And we couldn't argue with her. We're just thinking she's just this senile old lady. But she said they didn't go to the moon because God wouldn't let them. And that was it. No more arguing, no more talking about it. So I thought that was really nice. And she didn't have the Vedas. She just somehow knew that it didn't happen.
Hare Krishna, Pyari Prabhu ji. Dandavad Pranam.
Yes.
I think I read somewhere in Prabhupada's book that he gave this argument that when we came from India, we needed visa and passport. So
Oh, that's another thing. Yes, he talked about that too. He
yeah,
talked about even if they went to the moon, they couldn't enter into the moon, the actual atmosphere of the moon. Not saying physical atmosphere. That on the moon, it's a heavenly planet. Why didn't they see any of that? Because it's subtle. It's all subtle, and they're on the gross platform, so they couldn't see any of it. So they couldn't actually see what the moon was really like. Is that what you were saying?
yes, exactly, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, I think we can end class. I ended early, and it's still 7 minutes late. I shouldn't, if I didn't talk about the moon, it probably would have ended class early.
Roji, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just quickly wanted to add something. So there are few.
Well, you're very faint, though. Can you talk louder somehow?
Okay, is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, I was saying there are few devotees who have actually analyzed this a lot. They have basically tried to reconcile what's mentioned in, like, what is generally accepted by science and what is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. So, and they have given different arguments about it. But one argument that actually clicked with me is that they say that the moon that is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is described as Chandra. So Chandra is the graha which is mentioned, which is further away from sun. And what is mentioned in the scientific literature, the moon, that is basically another kind of, so moon, if you see from a scientific explanation, it is like a satellite which revolves around the earth. But if we look at the explanation of the Chandra Graha that is given in Srimad Bhagavatam, that doesn't revolve around the earth. It's like a completely independent, further away. It's like a heavenly planet. So what they say is this Chandra is not the moon that is generally accepted by the science. It is a completely, this Chandra Graha is different from what we see as moon here. So that explanation kind of registered with me. I kind of like that explanation. But they also mentioned over there, when they are trying to reconcile this, that the moon that we see here, that is kind of circling the earth, that moon is kind of like a representative of the Chandra Graha, because a lot of things on our earth are, they are bound to moon, like the movement of the oceans. And then it is also said that moon gives nourishment to different plants. So it kinds of represents the original Chandra Graha, but the original Chandra Graha is further away. It's like a heavenly planet, which is really, really far.
Okay, so basically they're saying that this moon is not the moon that they're talking about.
Yeah, so Chandra Graha is different from the moon that we see here, and it kinds of represents the Chandra Graha, but not exactly Chandra.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it sounds nice for people who don't believe it. To me, why wouldn't Prabhupada say something like that? If we're having the whole big discussion and people are leaving Krishna consciousness, why wouldn't he say that instead of saying that? In other words, Prabhupada accepted this as the moon that we see. So I that's what I feel. People may say anything just to satisfy themselves, and it may even be true. I can't say it's not. But I just don't see why Prabhupada wouldn't have mentioned that. Just a little thing he could have mentioned. Anyway, whether they went to the moon or they didn't go to the moon, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. I don't really lose any sleep over pretty much anything, fortunately. It's not my problem. So I don't. That would be my response to that when devotees say things like that.
Who says that?
Yeah, which devotees say that?
Ganapati Govind?
Ganapati Govind.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, who says that?
there is a devotee who has written a book also, Mataji, about the Vedic cosmology, and he also analyzed. I forgot the name. I'll get the name and share it with you, Mataji.
Because even our scientists never said that. Sariputta never said that. Sarup Damodar, is that his name? Sarup Damodar never said that. These are scientists who were studying all these things.
Okay, I'll share the name, Mataji. I'll look it up and I'll share.
Okay.
Okay, and tell us something more about him besides his name. Who's his guru? Just whatever you know. How long he's been in Krishna consciousness.
His credentials.
Yeah, his credentials. His visa.
Social Security.
Okay. We had enough of arguing for one day. Thank you very much. I mean, I don't have the answers. Maybe Ganapati Govind can give you more better answers, but we're going to offer our obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, offer our obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees. And I didn't pick this verse either. It was assigned to me.